Ladies just almost reaction. This is why Russia is incapable of air superiority in Ukraine. Bachal, now what you think? Yeah, I guess like a year or so old video. I didn't know this was a thing. Apparently, so Russia can't even do the air superiority thing in Ukraine. What jets do Ukraine has? That's the question. So I don't know. Okay, every time I hear something about Ukraine-Russia conflict, it's like Russia's tanks not working, Russia's like aircraft carrier and big ships are not working, even the planes are not working. So what is fucking working at this point? Yeah, this is just insanity. Yeah, so I've been watching military style videos recently. I watched that about the only one aircraft carrier from Russia which they took from Ukraine or close Soviet Union type of thing from this channel, I guess. I think I've watched a few videos from this channel already. The designation thing about what is called destroyer, what is called other ships designation, things like that. I saw LaserPix video about what's on the Moskva. So all that is like insane news because so far, like in the past, like okay, Russia doesn't have GDP that's like top 3, sure, but Russia is like besides USA, it's like one of the top powers, right? Always the argument was that Russia can use take a little money and make great stuff out of that, like reliable. Basically, argument of AK-47 is used. Like look at how AK-47 works, right? It's cheap, it's very reliable. So Russian equipments are like that. Now with the current conflict, it's been the more it goes on, like it's clear that that's not case with everything, right? Tanks are failing. Javelin is powerful, but still like. They didn't thought of I think they didn't think that US is going to give Javelin to Ukraine that much. So that's one of the reasons. Even the engines were failing of tanks, like that's just fucked up. Now, obviously the Moskva, which is like, that is the same one that sank that island, right? And Moscow is just like, okay, might of the Russia, and just like it sank, which is also a blow. I still remember in the news, it's coming like the big ship got sank, like whoa. And now apparently even the planes suck. Okay. Incapable of air superiority. So either like Ukrainians are like equal or better. That's the point here, right? I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. Let's watch it.
In the first 14 days of the invasion of Ukraine, Russia launched over 775 ballistic and cruise missiles. Many airports, TV towers, and civilian buildings were destroyed.
Oh,
in addition,
that's so fucked up.
countless missiles and unguided bombs were launched from Russian combat aircraft.
When I see like that, I'm thinking I hope nobody was home, but it's a home. There's a high chance somebody was at home, so that's just insanity, a civilian building like that.
Reportedly, Russia has 923 multi-role fighter aircraft, 467 attack aircraft, 124 bombers, and 546 attack helicopters. In contrast, Ukraine has 98 combat aircraft and just 15 helicopters. Of course, in practice, the number of operational aircraft is much less. But despite having a superior air force compared to that of Ukraine, the Russian Air Force has failed to achieve air superiority during the first 2 weeks.
Wait a minute, are those numbers accurate though? Didn't West send a lot of planes and equipment as well to Ukraine? With that, is that low? Because at that point, like it doesn't make sense, like that small number. And Russia is still failing, come on.
Weeks of the war, and appears to perform limited sorties into Ukrainian airspace. But why is that? In order to win a war in modern day, one side has to achieve air superiority. This means having control over the airspace in a way that permits them to conduct air attacks at any given time and place without interference from defensive air and missile threats. This is not a good situation for the defending side, as they would not be able to protect themselves against air attacks. To achieve air superiority, it's crucial to perform SEED, or suppression of enemy air defenses. This is usually followed by DEED, which stands for destruction of enemy air defenses. But Russians have failed to engage in SEED missions, and it's widely believed to be the reason why so far we have seen very limited aircraft being deployed. It is also the reason for a large number of Russian combat aircraft being shot down. But before getting into SEED and DEED, let's go over what Western analysts expected to happen during the first days of invasion and what really happened. On February 24, 2022, Russia began its invasion of Ukraine by firing over 100 ballistic and cruise missiles targeting military infrastructure. like runways, radar stations, and military bases. We should mention that many analysts were surprised that
Whoa,
Russia
you can't
did
even
not
see a
use
missile
lot
coming,
more
damn.
missiles on day one, given the large scale of the invasion. For reference, the US Navy launched some 320 Tomahawk cruise missiles on the first night of Operation Iraqi Freedom in March of 2003. While missiles can destroy static targets, they are ineffective against mobile targets without having precise intel. And this is why missile attacks are usually followed by a large fixed-wing strike package to finish off the mobile air defenses. But in this case, Russia never did that. Given the number of Russian ground assets deployed on Ukrainian territory,
I think that the bigger reason was they didn't thought they had to. I don't know, cruise missiles is good enough. Like whatever else is there, we can handle it type of way. It's just Ukraine. That's what I think. They just thought like it's like a week or two, a month, it would be over. That's what the thinking was.
it is very curious why the use of aviation has been so limited to date. One speculation could be that the Russian military overestimated their own capabilities while underestimating the Ukrainians. They may have bet on a swift victory by their ground forces, which meant that an extensive use of operational tactical aviation was not necessary. On February 28, 2022, 4 days after the invasion began, Russia declared total air superiority over Ukraine. However, 1 week later, Ukrainians continued limited sorties of their own combat aircraft and drones. Ukraine also continued to have a substantial amount of active surface-to-air missile or SAM systems. On March 7, 2022, 11 days into the conflict, Pentagon stated that airspace over Ukraine is contested. During the initial attacks, Ukrainian radars, some air defense systems, and early warning systems were destroyed, and this complicated things. But Ukrainian forces still have a substantial amount of mobile surface-to-air missile systems, specifically the long-range S-300 missiles, the medium-range Buk missile systems, and the short-range Tor missile systems, as well as hypermobile 9K-33 OSA surface-to-air missiles. Additionally, Ukrainian forces were supplied with thousands of man-portable anti-aircraft missiles or manpads, such as the FIM-92 Stinger. It is also widely believed that NATO shares its radar and reconnaissance intel with the Ukrainian forces, which greatly mitigates the loss of ground-based radars. Modern SEAD tactics were developed by Americans during the Vietnam War, when countless American aircraft were lost to the Soviet SA-2 surface-to-air missiles.
Yeah, see, the thing is that instead of Russia, if this was US, this wouldn't have happened. Only reason is because US is insanely paranoid. US overestimates enemies, capabilities, and even if they know it's not at that level, they just assumes it might as well. It's like better safe than sorry type of element. Every time when you see US, that's their approach. That's why you can see sometimes they like spend money where they shouldn't have to. It's like, why are you wasting this money? Just like you might need it type of way. So that's why, with the MiG-35, right? They just assume that this might be more powerful than they are claiming, and they made F-15 in the response of that, right? So their approach is always like enemies probably, where Russia didn't do that, right? Russia we're Russia, right? We don't need to do this, we don't need to do this, it'll be just in a month. They didn't thought that US and West would basically supply Ukraine in such a heavy number, Germany and everyone. Which is like, I don't know why. Why would you not think that would happen?
Problem was that surface-to-air missile batteries could be moved around, and you couldn't just simply locate them to destroy them. So the US Air Force came up with an innovative but risky tactic. In the US Air Force, an aircraft that engages in the SEAD role is known as Wild Weasel. A pair of Wild Weasels were sent into the war zone. One aircraft would be used as bait, allowing enemy air defenses to shoot at it, which would expose the location of the defenses. The second aircraft would then target and destroy the air defense battery. Of course, the first aircraft had to avoid getting hit using electronic warfare equipment, as well as relying on the skill set of the pilot, which was learned over hundreds of hours of practice in the cockpit. Let me recap. You go in as bait, and hopefully you can take out the enemy before they shoot you. If you're thinking, you gotta be shitting me, then you too are qualified to apply, because that's exactly what the initials on the Wild Weasels patch stand for.
What?
The Wild Weasels are specially trained units that use specialized aircraft and anti-radiation missiles, or ARMS. These missiles work by homing in on the radio emission source of the radar antenna. They usually have a small warhead, which is just enough to destroy the radar equipment without causing much collateral damage. Additionally, aircraft specialized in SEAT missions carry electronic equipment that can identify SAM radars, forcing them to shut down, resulting in suppression of air defenses. Also, electronic warfare aircraft can be used to jam radars. Now here's the thing. For the most part, Russia has not engaged in SEAT missions. Just for reference, among Western allies, SEAT missions can make up as high as 30% of all sorties during the initial days of the campaign. Yet, Russians do not appear to engage in SEAT missions the way Western forces do. For this reason, Ukrainian forces continue to contest the airspace by shooting down Russian aircraft each day. Russians are obviously aware of all this, and so you would expect the Russian Air Force to engage in SEAT missions to destroy the remaining mobile SAM batteries in Ukraine. But are Russians capable of such operations? The Russian Ministry of Defense published a video of an Su-35S carrying two Kh-31 anti-radiation missiles. Maybe they are hinting about SEAT, but those sorties are typically done multiple times a day in order to be effective, and that one airplane came back with one of the two missiles still remaining. So how can one explain the lack of SEAT missions on the Russian side? First and foremost, Russia does not treat SEAT as an independent air operation, but as a tactical role during a larger operation. As a result, Russian pilots lack both training and experience in SEAT missions. Furthermore, Russian pilots lack training to begin with. While most pilots in...
This doesn't make sense, man. Anti-air defense, destroying anti-air defense is one of the first things you should be thinking of. Remember playing those Call of Duty games? Now I'm not talking about newer ones, very old ones, right? World at War, Modern Warfare, original one, things like that, right? There are always a mission like, oh, we need to take out this like anti-air defense things or whatever. It's like World War style element, like big ass weapons attacking in the sky. Oh, we have to take those out. There's always like we have to take out anti-aircraft type of defenses first, so our planes can attack. That's always the first thing, right? How are they not prioritizing that? Like again, I think before preparing for this war, they just thought they wouldn't have to do that. It will be very over fast in a month, and those defenses might come. Just like how they took over Crimea, they thought they're just going to take over Ukraine, and those defenses will be needed for them. So I guess they didn't just prepare for that. You can't just do last second, right? You have to prepare for that. So they didn't, I guess.
In the NATO countries accrue an average of 200 flying hours per year. Russian pilots receive anywhere between 60 to 100 flying hours per year. The US Air Force holds red flag exercises several times a year, where military pilots and other flight crew members undergo realistic air combat training. In addition to that, American pilots who specialize in SEAT missions receive 200 flying hours per year in SEAT training alone. And this is because SEAT missions are the most difficult of air operations, which require both intensive training and dedicated munitions. In contrast, the training for Russian pilots is not as comprehensive or frequent. Second, Western defense analysts argue that it appears that Russian Air Force is incapable of complex air operations. During the Syria campaign, most of the sorties were solo or in pairs, as opposed to more complex operations that involve dozens of airplanes. Ukraine has been using Tor and Buk short-range SAM systems against Russian helicopters and fast jets. So one would expect Russia to fly a large strike package to quickly find and strike any Ukrainian SAMs, which would have unmasked their location as soon as they fired. The Russians would likely lose some aircraft, but could eliminate the remaining SAMs and quickly establish air superiority. That is, of course, if the Russian Air Force had experience in complex air operations, But this does not seem to be the case. As a result, the Russian Air Force presence in Ukraine is pretty limited. Most sorties happen overnight and at low altitudes. The reason for Russians flying low is to avoid detection because they have not neutralized the Ukrainian SAMs.
Yeah, but isn't that a threat to fly that low? Like a human intervention, isn't that like an issue with anti-aircraft type of weapon? I don't know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like, a lot of Ukrainians have that, right? Individual have that, like, anti-aircraft type of, like, launchers. I don't know, like javelins, but not javelins, but like javelins. So if you fly that low, isn't that a risk that they might shoot you down?
Surface-to-air missiles are generally less effective below an altitude of 1,600 feet. Russian pilots may not feel confident flying high, but flying low is not without risks either, as they can be targeted using manpads.
There you go.
When it comes to dynamic targets, the environment remains contested. It's a big weakness for the Russian Air Force. Ukrainian airspace, but by flying inside Ukrainian airspace, they would be easy prey for Russian surface-to-air missiles that are stationed in Russia and Belarus. The Russian S-400 long-range air defense system has a range of 250 miles, which means NATO aircraft would have to perform seed missions to neutralize air defenses inside Russia and Belarus in order to fly safely over Ukraine and enforce a no-fly zone, which you probably agree would not be a very good idea.
Nope.
According to the Ukrainian government, during the first 15 days, they have shot down 57 combat aircraft and destroyed 83 helicopters. With that said, only 12 aircraft and 12 helicopters have been verified shot down independently with photographic proof. For comparison, the United States lost 27 airplanes and 5 helicopters during combat as part of Operation Desert Storm in a span of almost 7 months. In a span.
Yeah. Everything's going to plan. That's the problem. That is the problem I'm thinking of. That's the problem I'm thinking of with Russia. Like, everybody's afraid of Putin so much that his own generals and admirals and people might not be giving him the news that he need to hear. That's the thing. That's the problem here. But yeah, lack of seed. I think Russia goes with the nukes. They have the largest amount of nukes. I don't know how many are operational, but they have the largest amount of nukes. I think that alone is like enough deterrent, right? Like he said, like NATO can't do air blockade over Ukraine or whatever. Why? Because they have to take out Russian SAMs, and if they do that, that's a war. like threat of nuke is here, right? So like, yeah, so even Russia is like coming shortcoming here. Like NATO can't do anything. But yeah, this is like insanity. I still don't understand like why Russia decided to attack now when nothing is ready. They haven't checked their ships, Moscow and things like. They haven't checked that like how good they are. Are they even operational? They haven't like trained their fighters for seed and all the missile. Like they even I don't understand like they don't value that. How the fuck do you don't value that in the modern world? Like Sam is the one threat you have against air superiority, right? The whole Top Gun Maverick movie was based on, oh, we need to worry about Sam. That's the whole movie. That's it. So I don't know. Yeah, there you go. Right, well, that was why Russia is incapable of air superiority in Ukraine. Well, tell me now what you think. If you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.